Edward the Confessor was King of England between 1042 and 1066. He was born in Islip 1,000 years ago in 1005, on the site of the Red Lion car park. The staff, parents and children of Dr. South's school decided to celebrate the millennium of his birth with a whole range of Saxon events.
I think probably it was about 2 years ago now, one of the villagers who was a parent at the school had the idea that it would be a great time to do something like this involving all the people in the village, the whole community.
I originally started getting involved in this 2 years ago because I was a friend of Dr. South, and I was asked something like, Edward the Confessor celebration's going to be in 2005. Would you be the representative from the school that just sits on the committee and maybe do some kind of historical pageant or something? So that's how it started off. And it sort of grew and grew and grew. Well, it ended up becoming a whole huge festival that started off at the beginning of May with a few little fetes. At the end of May, we had a big festival that included a whole Saxon encampment in the village.
We've got 80 children in the school, ranging from 2.5 in the foundation stage unit, right up to 11, the oldest children. In one classroom, the children have been designing their own Norman longships and making those. So design technology has been a theme. Children have been discovering about how manuscripts were written then and doing some illuminated letters.
We had to paint a shield each to be on the to put on the side of the boat while it was burned, and 2 shields would win the competition so that they wouldn't get burnt, because the 2 Saxon leaders in the settlement would choose them, and they wouldn't get burnt, and whoever painted them would get to keep them.
A replica of the Bayeux tapestry was brought to the village, its first time out of France. It illustrates the life of Edward the Confessor and the Battle of Hastings.
Edward the Confessor sent his envoy across to France, and he knew that he was dying, and he wanted William, the King of France, to become King of England after him. So Harold, who was the envoy, sailed across the Channel and asked William to become King of England and sailed back again. When he returned, Edward died, and Harold decided he would take the English crown for himself. And when William heard that, he formed his fleet and sailed across the Channel, landed on Pevensey Beach, and that was the Battle of Hastings, when Harold then was shot in the eye by the arrow and died, and William the Conqueror, as he became known, became King of England after Edward the Confessor.
This one's been... Oh, his arm has been stolen off him, I think.
Oh.
Is that the one with Harold, with the arrow in the eye? You've found it? Okay.
Regia Anglorum, a reenactment society, were booked to come and help bring the Saxons to life.
The first point of contact was Kim Seddon of Regia Anglorum, and he was invited to the first steering group committee meeting to see whether it was feasible to set up the Saxon encampment. The funding came from a lottery grant. We bid for some lottery money and got £5,000, and that's really what paid for Regia Anglorum.
The people whose lives we recreate were like us. They lived a long time ago, but they were like us. They had the same aspirations, the same hopes and dreams, and the same kind of sense of humour. If we can hear what they heard, if we can see what they saw, if we can tread where they trod, then we may trace their footprints in time.
Well, the whole sort of Saxon encampment involved everybody in the school, and I did ask for every child to dress up as a Saxon. Oh, they live it, they feel it, they love it. I mean, the whole dressing up is part and parcel of that. You get so much more of an idea of how people lived their lives if you're in costume. And seeing the dyeing and the weaving, the horses, the musical instruments, all those things that were on show at the Saxon camp have shown them far more than just research from books or research on the internet.
This is a sword, right? This is like a handgun. It only has one purpose. It's not for hunting, it's not used for chopping up wood, it's used for killing people. That's the only purpose that a sword has.
How did they wear this for like 80? I must like it.
The children just sat there, fascinated. Even the 4-year-olds were amazed by all of this. And the children have not stopped talking about Saxons since that happened. And 2 of my children have got red hair, and they said, "Mummy, did you know what? Red-headed children were the most precious of all, particularly boys, because their wee was really good for fixing dyes in Saxon clothing." So every time a Saxon saw a redhead on this particular day, they'd be rubbing their head saying, "Great, you're a very valuable child. We want your wee to make this dye to fix." So stuff like that. And there was a guy that was making coins, and they got to make these little coins, and they were asked, "How did you have change?" And basically they got change by the coin being cut in half or in quarters. And one of my children was crying their eyes out because they'd been given a quarter of one of these coins and they'd managed to lose it on the way home in their pocket or something or other. I don't think they could get that from just school classroom lessons. And since we've done that, they came back the same day and they made these little shield things, and they've been making little badges and things for their cloaks, and they've got all this sort of stuff, and they're building Saxon encampments in the garden. So it's sort of taken over their life a bit, really.
What happens if you run out of bread?
If you run out of bread, you get hungry. You run out of bread, it means someone hasn't been working. And what's the rule? If you don't work,
You don't get fed.
right. You've got to watch the warriors. You have to be very careful because the warriors do it too fast and they get flour everywhere. That's right, girl. Give him a run for his money. Go on.
It does take a huge amount of effort by a few very committed people, but if you have those people in your village, in your town, who have that sort of commitment, then it is possible. There were downsides to things where we didn't think that it was going to go ahead for all sorts of different reasons. But the money, I think, was the least of the problems. Towards the end, it was more the actual detail of, where are we going to get the portaloos from and who's going to pick up the litter. It was that sort of detail that caused, I think, more hassle than actually organising the main event.
Maggie, here she comes. Keep steady, everybody. Maggie, here she comes.
When you sit children down in the classroom, especially when they're in their peer group, when they've got to be cool, as it were, it's so difficult to get their attention on a piece of paper and maybe a few pictures. But, they come into an environment like this and they can see chainmail, they can see weaving being done, they can see the stuff, they can touch it, they can feel it. It's part of the real world all of a sudden and not something that's written down in a book. Yeah, it's about, in a real mail shirt, it takes about 1 man year's work. If you think about a man today works about 8 hours a day, and in a real mail shirt is about 1 man year's work.
Vivat Rex! Vivat Rex! Vivat Rex! Vivat Rex and glory!
by doing, everybody gets a chance to excel. And that's part of what we're about, involving everybody and letting all the children achieve some sort of success. I think then children remember. And that's the main point of it, is so that if you use all your senses, all your abilities to do something, you will remember it. And that's what history is about, remembering the past, bringing the past to life.
All the activities they're doing in different tents is really good. Yeah, and history is normally boring.
I especially liked being able to wear one of the helmets and use try swinging one of the swords.
There's like a lot of cool stuff like spears and daggers, and I'd like to be in like a battle.
Interestingly, at the same time as the main events of this festival being worked up to through May, Dr. South's school had an Ofsted inspection, and so obviously that was a particular strain on everybody, as these things are. However, the outcome of it was that, I understand in the inspection report, that they commended the school on their good links with the community.
The climax of the festival was the burning of a Viking longship, a reenactment of a Viking funeral.
Saturday night, I thought that was absolutely brilliant to see the procession led by the torches, the stillness, the stirring music in the background, to hear the oohs and ahs and the laughter when the first row of arrows missed the sail, and then the second row of flaming arrows actually hit. And I think to see the looks on the children's faces when they could see that dragon's head catch fire and fall off. It just said to me this was really well worth it.